Before arriving in South Africa, the assignment I thought I would be completing and how I'm actually doing it now are two entirely different things. This is due to a variety of factors, but most in part from what I learned from the children there. The collection and analysis of stories and events pertaining to the educational value is going to come from my perspective and taken from a point least invasive and less exploitative than filming the children in South Africa. The thing I forgot when preparing for this assignment was the attachment I would feel to these children and the effect that they would have on my heart. At first I knew that I had to change this assignment since my camera broke the first week in South Africa. There was nothing I could do about it. But in actuality, the more I began to work with the kids and became more submerged within South African culture, I knew that the original assignment did not sit well with me. What I learned from the South African Constitution and children's rights made me think twice about how I would interact with these children. I did this so-called field work and research at the Raphael Center in South Africa. It was a place where people could go to be tested for HIV and AIDS, but also a community for children who were affected or infected by HIV and AIDS. My heart was continually broken by the stories and backgrounds of these children, and just the simple interactions I held between them. Another factor that contributed in my search to the assignment appropriately was the language barrier. The children I volunteered with and spent time with only spoke Xhosa. There was no translator and I could not communicate them through language, since they didn't know English and I didn't know Xhosa. So we relied on signs and actions. It was a challenge, but I learned that education is not all verbal and that these children had a lot of things to teach me. The brokenness in their eyes was banished by their joyful laughs and big smiles from playing. For confronting HIV and AIDS head-on when I arrived in South Africa, and for being constantly surrounded by it, I forgot for a brief moment that joy can still exist in these places. Things that I found in the South African Constitution that made me reconsider how I would do this assignment and how it was special to me and to my heart included pieces from Section 28 of the Constitution. It was through this that I would not knowingly exploit these children any more than they had already been exploited. Under Section 28 of the South African Constitution, a child is in reference to a person under the age of 18 years old, and that a children's best interests are paramount importance in every manner concerning the children. Some of their rights include to a name and a nationality from birth, to family care, parental care, or an appropriate alternative care in a safe environment, to basic nutrition, shelter, basic healthcare services and social services, and to be protected from things as maltreatment, neglect, abuse, degradation, protection from exploitative labor practices, and not to be required or permitted to perform work or provide services that are inappropriate for a person of that child's age, or place them at risk for the child's well-being, education, physical or mental health, or spiritual, moral, or social development. It was through this that I knew that I had to change how it would be done. I had no right to film or intrude on these children's lives. I wanted to have the most positive impact on them as I could, but subjecting them to something that I could not foresee the outcome of and not know the consequences, I just couldn't do it. I had no permission, no right, and no reason to do that to these children. I would not treat them as a means to an end. This is not just an assignment. I was involved and affected. So, to be the least exploitative, I decided that their stories were more than enough to share. The stories I was told by volunteers that knew the children and could communicate with them in their language still tug at my heart. There was one girl, she's 14, who had been abused all of her life and had resorted to alcohol and sexual relationships. She's in a relationship with a 50-some-year-old man, and he has had a sexual relationship with her since she's been 8. Her false dependency on this man and alcohol were heartbreaking to witness. There was just pain in her eyes. Other boys that I had the pleasure of hanging out with or simply kicking a soccer ball around on the field were this group that were labeled as thugs and pretty much the worst of the bunch. Their reputation was horrible and everyone thought poorly of them. Every thug characteristic had been attached to their name, and I couldn't see why, for I merely saw these children as children. They were among the ages of 15 to 17 and were in school at an elementary age. Well, they were about in the 5th grade. They seemed so hopeless and were placed in this category and box where nothing had been expected to come from their lives but trouble. So breaking through and trying to relate with them through sports was something that gave me pleasure and put a smile on my face as they scored goals against me, which was not very hard, and just played and let them be kids. They had smiles on their faces and the glow in their eyes. I won't forget that. Then there were the younger children who were always rowdy and hard to settle down, but you start a simple game or activity with them and their focus shifts, and the reality that these children faced at home had been temporarily wiped away. We were only in the moment. The values that I witnessed in this community are what I believe are reflected in a traditional society and instilled in their parts of education. These children looked out for one another. No one was ever left alone or was playing by himself or herself. They were a family bonded by circumstances. The kindness and compassion seen in how these children interacted showed me that a person is more than their circumstances. Through everything I witnessed and learned at the Raphael Center is that every human deserves an equal chance. When this equality is difficult to find and hard to place, things become much more complicated. How does one even begin to define equality in a nation still trying to scramble and put the pieces back post-apartheid? My heart broke for them. My heart is still broken. But I know that the values and support of the people at the Raphael Center are making a huge impact, and my heart goes out for them, and that those are affected and surrounded with this on a daily basis. I realize I do not want to be removed from this, and cannot forget about those that touched my heart. This assignment turned out to be an endeavor that would change my thinking pattern altogether, and I can't turn back from that. Thank you for this opportunity, and I really appreciate it, Dr. Ngong.